Be me, professional freelance event photographer. My business, Veridian Visuals, specialized in high-end luxury events. We were the silent observers, the chroniclers of perfection, the ones who captured the magic that money could buy. I ran a tight ship, every contract watertight, every piece of gear meticulously maintained, every shot framed with precision. My reputation for discretion and quality was impeccable, built over 2 decades in the industry. Be not me, Mrs. Felicity Sterling. She was a caricature of old money attempting a philanthropic facade. Her charity gala, the Sterling Charity Ball for the Arts, was supposed to be the event of the season. She had the air of someone who believed rules were for other people, and that her budget, however meager, entitled her to the moon and stars. Her sense of entitlement was a physical aura, a force field of aggressive cheapness. The first interaction was during the initial booking. Mrs. Sterling insisted on a charity discount that would have cut my rate by nearly 50%. She argued that exposure to her illustrious guest list was payment enough. I politely explained Veridian Visuals did not operate on an exposure model. My standard contract included tiered pricing, with no exceptions for nonprofits unless explicitly negotiated as a pro bono contribution. She then demanded an extra videographer, a drone operator, and a dedicated photo booth for free. Her logic was that my competitors offered these as standard packages. I patiently walked her through our premium offerings, explaining how each service had a distinct cost based on equipment, personnel, and post-production time. She huffed, accused me of being greedy, and reluctantly agreed to my standard photography package, but not without implying I was taking advantage of her noble cause. The second interaction occurred during the venue walkthrough at the historic Obsidian Ballroom. Mrs. Sterling had decided, without consulting the venue or Lux Events, the event planning company that hired me, to rearrange the ballroom's antique crystal chandeliers. She wanted them lowered for better ambience. The ballroom manager, Mr. Henderson, explained these were original fixtures, irreplaceable and anchored into structural beams. Any alteration was not only impossible, but also a major safety hazard. Mrs. Sterling then unveiled her plan for an immersive art installation in the grand foyer. This involved scaffolding, heavy lighting rigs, and a live performance that would block the main emergency exit. Mr. Henderson, with admirable restraint, explained the fire codes. Blocking an emergency exit was a non-negotiable violation, liable to shut down the entire event. She simply waved her hand, dismissing his concerns as petty bureaucracy. I documented every single exchange, every raised eyebrow from Mr. Henderson, every dismissive gesture from Mrs. Sterling. It was protocol. The pre-event meeting was a special kind of hell. Mrs. Sterling presented a guest list that was suspiciously short, exactly the number allowed by her contract with Lux Events for the Obsidian Ballroom's main hall. She then casually mentioned her plus ones. Not 2 or 3, but 50 special contributors who would be arriving separately and donating at the door. She expected them to be seated and served, free of charge. She described them as critical for the success of the charity. Lux Events senior planner, Miss Davies, immediately interjected. The venue had a strict capacity limit. Every guest had to be accounted for, prepaid, and on the official list for fire safety and catering. Overcapacity meant immediate fines, potential shutdown, and serious liability issues. Mrs. Sterling simply smiled, a saccharine, dismissive expression. "Oh, darling, it's a charity. I'm sure we can make exceptions." Miss Davies' face was a mask of professional agony. I just kept taking notes, documenting the conversation meticulously. Every word, every clause from the Lux Events contract flashed in my mind. The breaking point arrived like a freight train on the day of the gala. I arrived early, setting up my primary cameras, adjusting lighting, and coordinating with the venue staff. The Obsidian Ballroom was a breathtaking space, all gilded cornices and polished marble. My team and I were ready, our equipment primed to capture every elegant moment. Then Mrs. Sterling appeared, a whirlwind of taffeta and indignation. She pointed to a line of people huddled outside the service entrance. "Those are my special guests," she declared far too loudly. "Let them in, they're getting cold." There were easily 50 people, maybe more. Some held small, gift-wrapped boxes. Others carried what looked suspiciously like large power strips and speaker stands. The venue security, following strict instructions, refused entry. Mrs. Sterling began to argue vehemently. "I told Lux Events about this," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the grand foyer. "They promised me full access for my contributors." This was an outright lie. I had been present for every meeting, every email chain. She had been explicitly denied this request. The security supervisor, a man with the patience of a saint, simply shook his head. "Ma'am, without a name on the approved guest list, we cannot permit entry." Then came the piece de resistance. Her cousin, DJ Vortex, arrived with a rented U-Haul. Inside was not a modest DJ setup, but a monstrous array of subwoofers, custom light panels, and a haze machine. He began to unload. "This is for the after-party vibe," Mrs. Sterling announced, beaming. "My gift to the arts community." The venue had a preferred vendor list, and external sound/lighting specialists required permits and prior approval due to the building's historical electrical infrastructure. DJ Vortex was not on that list, nor did he have any permits. He started plugging his behemoth sound system directly into a series of overloaded power strips, daisy-chaining them into an ancient wall outlet clearly marked, low amperage use only. The venue electrician, a veteran named Gary, immediately intervened. "Ma'am, sir, you absolutely cannot plug that in here. This building's wiring isn't rated for that kind of load. You'll blow the circuits, maybe even start a fire." Mrs. Sterling, however, would not be deterred. "Nonsense, Gary. It's perfectly safe. My cousin is a professional. Just give him an hour to set up." She gestured to DJ Vortex, who, with an arrogant smirk, disregarded Gary completely and continued connecting his illicit equipment. I watched, my camera quietly documenting the entire scene. Mrs. Sterling, the uninvited guests, the unauthorized DJ, the unsafe electrical setup. Every interaction, every refusal, every direct instruction ignored. My internal monologue was a quiet hum of contractual clauses and liability waivers. The Lux Events contract, the Obsidian Ballroom's safety guidelines, my own professional ethics code. They all pointed to one thing: a brewing storm of catastrophic failure, entirely engineered by Mrs. Sterling. The malicious compliance was forming, a precise, methodical setup. Mrs. Sterling finally bullied security into allowing her contributors into a side lounge, promising they would wait there until she sorted things out. Of course, sorting things out meant simply waiting for the main event to begin, then attempting to blend them into the crowd. I captured photos of the side lounge filling beyond capacity, the hurried setting up of a makeshift, unauthorized bar run by one of Mrs. Sterling's contributors, pouring cheap wine into plastic cups. This was going to be epic. The master plan began, not with a flourish, but with a quiet click of my camera shutter. I was in read-only mode. Every interaction with Mrs. Sterling became an information-gathering exercise. She would demand, I would confirm receipt of the demand. She would instruct, I would acknowledge the instruction. My responses were neutral, devoid of emotion, factual and minimal. I stopped arguing entirely. I simply observed and documented. My job description was clear: document the event as per client specifications and general event flow. Mrs. Sterling, through her actions, had become a client specification. I began taking multiple, time-stamped photos of everything, the actual number of guests compared to the official manifest. My long lens was a powerful tool for discrete crowd counting. The special contributors merging into the main ballroom, their illicit drinks in hand. DJ Vortex's sprawling, multi-plug electrical nightmare, clearly overloading the antiquated outlets. I zoomed in on the low amperage use only stickers. The makeshift bar, complete with an unlabeled bottle and plastic cups. Security guards looking increasingly stressed as they tried to manage the rogue elements. Mr. Henderson, the ballroom manager, and Miss Davies, the event planner, making increasingly frantic attempts to speak with Mrs. Sterling, only to be dismissed. I made sure to capture Mrs. Sterling herself, frequently, always with her in frame, as her demands were being ignored or enforced. Her confident, dismissive posture. Her triumphant smile as her plan seemed to unfold. Her hand gestures, every subtle non-verbal cue that screamed, "I am in charge, and your rules do not apply to me." These visual cues would later serve as irrefutable evidence of her direct involvement and conscious decisions. My mind meticulously cross-referenced every contractual clause. The Lux Events Service Agreement, Section 4.3, client is solely responsible for guest list accuracy and adherence to venue capacity limits. The Obsidian Ballroom's preferred vendor policy, paragraph 2, subsection B. All external contractors, especially those involving power, sound, or temporary structures, must be pre-approved, licensed, and provide proof of insurance. My own Viridian Visuals contract, section 7.1. Photographer's sole duty is to document the event as it occurs. There was no instruction to interfere, only to record. I took photographs of the emergency exit signs, becoming increasingly obscured by the immersive art installation. I captured close-ups of the overloaded extension cords, clearly showing the strain on the connections, the slight bowing of the plastic. I even managed to snap a discreet shot of one of the contributors, attempting to bypass the official caterers, bringing in a large, unidentifiable pan of food from a cooler. Food safety violation, another check in my mental list. The air in the ballroom grew thick, not just with the scent of expensive perfume and cheap wine, but with a palpable tension. Miss Davies looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. Mr. Henderson was on his phone constantly, his jaw tight. Yet Mrs. Sterling remained blissfully unaware, gliding through the room, accepting compliments on her vision, oblivious to the ticking time bomb she had assembled. My cameras kept clicking, the digital timestamps embedding themselves into every piece of evidence. The trap was set, spring-loaded and ready. The execution was swift and spectacular. The main toast was delivered, and as DJ Vortex cranked up his sound system for the post-dinner dance, the lights in the grand ballroom flickered violently. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Then, with a deafening crack, the entire section of the ballroom powered by Mrs. Sterling's rogue setup went dark. The hum of the air conditioning died. Emergency lights, dim and eerie, cast long shadows. Immediately, the fire alarms blared. Not a drill, but the real, ear-splitting shriek of an actual alarm. Panic rippled through the now darkened room. Guests began to move, confused and frightened. The emergency exit in the foyer, however, was still partially blocked by the art installation, causing a bottleneck. I kept my cameras steady, capturing the chaos, the expressions of fear, the struggling guests. Mrs. Sterling miraculously found me in the gloom. Her face, illuminated by an emergency light, was a mask of fury. "What did you do?" she shrieked, grabbing my arm. "This is your fault. You were supposed to manage everything." Her voice was shrill, projecting blame onto me. I calmly extracted my arm. "Mrs. Sterling," I said, my voice steady, "my contract specifies photographic documentation, not event management or electrical engineering." From my bag, I produced a ruggedized tablet. On the screen, a series of time-stamped photos scrolled, evidence of her choices. "Here," I stated, holding up the tablet for her and nearby staff to see, "is a photograph taken at 6:17 p.m. showing DJ Vortex plugging his equipment into a clearly marked low amperage outlet after being warned by venue staff. Here at 7:03 p.m. is an overhead shot of the foyer showing the emergency exit partially blocked by your art installation. And here, at 7:45 p.m., are 57 individuals I counted, clearly not on the official guest list, blending into the main ballroom. Mr. Henderson and Miss Davies appeared, their faces grim. Gary, the electrician, was already at the main panel, trying to isolate the blown circuit. Fire marshals, summoned by the alarms, were entering the building. "Mrs. Sterling," Mr. Henderson said, his voice laced with suppressed rage, "this entire event is now officially shut down due to multiple safety violations, gross overcrowding, and unauthorized electrical modifications." But, Mrs. Sterling stammered, pointing at me. "He was supposed to tell me. He's the photographer." Miss Davies stepped forward, her voice steely. Mrs. Sterling, we have a contractual clause, section 6.2, stating all external vendors must be approved. Your DJ was not. We also have countless emails confirming the guest list and capacity limits. Our team repeatedly advised you against these actions. Furthermore, she turned to me, Veridian Visuals provided us with preliminary reports this evening detailing every single one of these breaches as they occurred, complete with photographic evidence. My tablet continued to scroll, displaying the irrefutable proof. The fallout was immediate and devastating. The fire marshals declared the Obsidian Ballroom unsafe and evacuated every single guest. The police were called due to the unauthorized bar and potential health code violations. Mrs. Sterling, pale and trembling, tried to argue with everyone, but the evidence was overwhelming. My photographs were projected onto a screen in a makeshift incident room, time-stamped and irrefutable. Every demand, every ignored warning, every unsafe choice laid bare. Lux Events immediately moved to terminate their contract with Mrs. Sterling, citing multiple breaches and gross negligence. They were already preparing a lawsuit for damages to their reputation and the considerable financial losses incurred. The Obsidian Ballroom, a historic landmark, was facing a week-long shutdown for safety inspections and electrical repairs, all costs to be billed directly to Mrs. Sterling, as stipulated in her rental agreement. The venue's legal team was already drafting papers. The health department was notified about the unauthorized food and alcohol. DJ Vortex was facing fines for operating without a license and for electrical code violations. News of the Sterling fiasco spread like wildfire through the city's high society, forever tarnishing Mrs. Sterling's name. Her charity was now under investigation for fraudulent fundraising. Her carefully constructed philanthropic image had been shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, all because she wanted 5-star service for penny-pinching prices, and she found a dangerously patient photographer who simply let her hang herself with her own rope. Update 2 weeks later, just got the notice. Lux Events won their summary judgment against Mrs. Sterling. Not only did she lose her deposit, but she's on the hook for a 6-figure sum covering lost business, legal fees, and reputational damage. The Obsidian Ballroom is also pursuing their own lawsuit for property damage and business interruption. My invoices for extended documentation services were paid in full with a bonus. Apparently, my time-stamped photos were so utterly damning, her lawyers couldn't even mount a defense. She tried to claim I conspired against her, but my contract merely stipulated I document what was, not what should have been. Update 2, 1 month later. Heard through the grapevine that the Sterling Charity Ball for the Arts is defunct. The Attorney General's office found significant discrepancies in their accounting, specifically regarding funds that were supposed to go to art programs but ended up bolstering Mrs. Sterling's personal accounts. Her illustrious guest list has evaporated, and she's been uninvited from every social gathering that matters. Public humiliation is a powerful deterrent. DJ Vortex also got slapped with a hefty fine and had his equipment confiscated. Update 3 months later. Final word came down today. Mrs. Sterling's home, a sprawling mansion she inherited, has been put up for sale. Not by choice, but due to mounting legal fees and judgments from Lux Events and the Obsidian Ballroom. Seems her aggressive cheapness and colossal entitlement finally caught up to her. There's a certain poetic justice in watching someone lose their legacy because they refused to pay for a few extra chairs and a licensed electrician. My business is flourishing. Funny how a single, well-documented disaster can solidify a reputation for unflappable professionalism.